Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, let's talk some boxing. So we're going to talk about the rise in superstardom of Manny Pacquiao and also his coincidental plateau, a peak of his career, and we're going to talk about one or two fights to the present day. So Manny Pacquiao burst onto the American scene after fighting the slick, very skilled Leho Ledwaba from South Africa for the IBF World Super Bantamweight title. That fight was awesome because no one really knew Manny Pacquiao like that. He was with Golden Boy and the HBO commentary team of Larry Merchant, George Foreman, and Jim Lampley were kind of astounded. In fact, Jim Lampley kind of knew how to pronounce Pacquiao's name, but Foreman and Merchant were really funny when they were trying to pronounce his name, Pacquiao, and all kinds. It was hilarious. But he burst onto the scene and really wowed everyone by taking apart Ledabwa with some serious power and some beautiful body punching. He would punch to the head, punch to the body. He would use mostly the straight left, but he was also timing him, looking at the distance. He was using one or two right hooks and a jab. It was beautiful to watch. It was beautiful boxing. And Pacquiao had, you would put all the leverage into each shot. They were thudding shots. Okay, and Ledwaba, he faded out, I think, in somewhere around the seventh or the eighth round. I think he went down. That was it from a body shot. So this was the inception of the superstardom of Manny Pacquiao in the United States. Fighting a rough and tough opponent in Agapito Sanchez, Manny Pacquiao showed that he had the grit. Even though that fight ended in a draw because of an accidental head block that really messed up Pacquiao's face and all the low blows from Agapito Sanchez, Manny Pacquiao showed he still had the punching power. I mean, Agapito Sanchez was game as well. He was fighting back. But what was interesting to me was the fact that Manny Pacquiao, he had grit. Even though his eyes were busted up and so on, he still kept on coming. He still kept on fighting, showing how tough he was. So that was very interesting to me. Now, he really cracked into superstardom by fighting Marco Antonio Barrera. Marco Antonio Barrera was one of the biggest, toughest fighters in Mexico. And the only nemesis Marco Antonio Barrera had before Pacquiao's time was Eric Morales. Marco Antonio Barrera, he beat Prince Nassim Hamed. I mean, soundly beat him with fundamentals of boxing, and he could brawl, he could do it all. And Pacquiao basically stopped him late in the 11th round when his corner put out the towel against Marco Antonio Barrera. Barrera was never going to retire. That was never going to happen. And it was a great fight. And he beat one of two of the greatest featherweights in the division. These were the bad boys of the featherweight division, very feared, him and Eric Morales. And they just come off of I think it was either a trilogy or two fights. And I think Barrera won this one. So it was crazy, man. And Manny Pacquiao beat convincingly Marco Antonio Barrera. He then went on to fight Juan Manuel Marquez, who is still to this day Manny Pacquiao's greatest nemesis. A guy who you could knock him down, but he would get back up and he'd give you some. And that's what happened in the first fight. Manny Pacquiao was basically mowing over all his opponents till he met Juan Manuel Marquez. He knocked down Marquez 3 times in the first round, but after that Marquez proceeded to box Pacquiao and actually give him as good as he was getting and win a lot of the middle to late rounds. Nevertheless, because Pacquiao knocked him down 3 times in the first round, they ended up in a draw. Some argue that one judge, he should have called the first round a 10-6 round. He didn't do it, and he was the decider in the fight, and he pretty much therefore made it a draw. It should have gone to Pacquiao, some argue. Of course, these guys had great fights, had a great trilogy, and then eventually Marquez, he feels, how Marquez, from Marquez's point of view, I guess, he would feel that he got a deserved win by knocking out Manny Pacquiao in the 4th. But who knows? They may fight each other a 5th time. You just never know. You know what I mean? But this was another great Mexican fighter Manny Pacquiao fought. So Pacquiao fought 2 great Mexican fighters, and as if that wasn't enough, those are exciting fights. He was building up a huge fan base, and then he faced Eric Morales. Eric Morales beat him the first fight. He did, probably using the blueprint from Juan Manuel Marquez. But in the second and third fights, Manny Pacquiao really caused Eric Morales to quit twice. Eric Morales quit twice. And to cause Eric Morales to quit, Manny Pacquiao really was a great. After that, Manny Pacquiao's name really started to light up with fire. People were talking about Pacquiao. This was back in, I think, 2005 to 2006. By 2008, Manny Pacquiao demolished Oscar De La Hoya, coming down from junior middleweight to welterweight. And he demolished Oscar De La Hoya in such a fashion that was so exciting that Manny Pacquiao instantaneously became a household name. People who didn't even know anything about boxing started to follow Manny Pacquiao. This was almost the pinnacle of his career, but could it get better? Oh yes, it could. He fought then Ricky Hatton, knocking him out in the second round. This guy started plowing through opponents. Now people were like, this guy is more than sensational. This guy is more than a Mike Tyson of his generation. People started to exaggerate his knockout power because of just the brilliance of how and sensational nature of how he would get his knockouts and how his fights would go. As if that wasn't good enough, Manny Pacquiao in his next fight that was significant fought Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto had been demolishing just about everybody until he faced Antonio Margarito, and he got his face busted up without recognition. But then Miguel Cotto came back to win one fight against, I can't remember his name, Michael Jennings I think it was, and then he fought Joshua Clottey, and he got the nod on that fight. But against Manny Pacquiao, nobody thought Manny Pacquiao could demolish Cotto the way he did. Now Cotto fought very well as well, making it a very exciting fight. By this time, the whole world was just reeling after Manny Pacquiao. And then he fought Antonio Margarito. And the fact that Manny Pacquiao beat Antonio Margarito, even though it was a catchweight of 150 pounds for the junior middleweight title of the world, was just beyond imagination. This, to me, was the pinnacle of Manny Pacquiao's career after he beat Antonio Margarito. He then went on to fight Shane Mosley, and he knocked down Shane Mosley. He's the only guy to ever knock down Shane Mosley in his career. After that, Shane Mosley went into self-preservation and was backing up almost entirely throughout the fight, which was just incredible. Of course, there was a lot of sensational excitement around Manny Pacquiao after that, and it was a comparison of him to Floyd Mayweather. But what was really, really, really interesting to me is that how he would just take control of fights and have his opponent defensively moving backwards. So that was incredible. It was not as sensational as Antonio Margarito, mainly because he couldn't get the knockout or really bludgeon Shane Mosley's face. Shane Mosley's face was pretty much not very badly damaged. It was swollen and puffy, but it wasn't badly damaged. But it was still an incredible fight. So things weren't as exactly at the fever pitch that I think the pinnacle of his career was against Antonio Margarito. He then went on to fight Joshua Clottey. I think he fought then Timothy Bradley. In the Timothy Bradley fight, people said that Manny Pacquiao lost his speed and so on. It's not that. His superstardom started to go downwards. After the Timothy Bradley fight, he fought Juan Manuel Marquez, who knocked him out. And on knocking him down, his superstar status became much lower, mainly because people thought Superman, Manny Pacquiao, he's human. He can get knocked out. But then he rebounded with Brandon Rios and then refaced Timothy Bradley in a rematch, which I thought was the best fight of his career. I think this is the best win he's ever had. The most sensational was against those bigger guys, but the best win he's ever had was against Timothy Bradley. Though there were no knockdowns, and there never was a knockdown against Timothy Bradley. And Timothy Bradley is a very skilled, slick, fast, versatile fighter. The fact that he beat Timothy Bradley the second time really was a testimony to how good he was. But again, his superstar status was still falling in spite of all of that. And his last Chris Algieri fight, it was falling. Even though he was winning, he wasn't as sensational as he was when he was just marking up people's face, busting them up, and knocking them out. Nevertheless, Manny Pacquiao had a really dominant performance against Chris Algieri, as reported, knocking him down 6 times. But the coolest thing about Manny Pacquiao at that point in time was, as we all know, true champion takes a loss and bounce back. This guy bounced back. I mean, anybody should have been able to take him out after that knockout. Nobody comes back from a knockout like that to become the WBO champion. And now the pinnacle fight of his career. I don't think there's any fight higher than this fight, is when he's going to fight Floyd Mayweather. So his superstar status has just risen all the way up. The guy that he'd been compared to all the time since 2007, when he started to enter into 2008, when he entered into the welterweight division after fighting Oscar De La Hoya, was the same guy now that he's facing. And if he can beat Floyd Mayweather, this will be the greatest win of his career, and it will blow him into superstar status. So we'll see what happens in this fight. But this is the rise of Manny Pacquiao to superstar status. His somewhat plateau, fall, and rise again.